Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to a fantastic journey which I'm gonna take you on, but this time on the ocean, because yes, we definitely wanna evaluate this new hero exclusively for the Navy called Jester. So we have made previous a video in which we kind of had an approach and explained how this hero is designed. So I won't repeat that information, but what is very worth to be mentioned is, if you have a look here downstairs, this is the first hero since November 2022, when Shinji came out, which is DEF based. Now, please do not confuse this DEF with the DEF of all units, because these are two different things. In other words, what this DEF does, it's a unit HP increase. So in this case, you see Jester giving you 104% extra unit HP and only 36.9 unit attack. Now let's briefly have a look at Stromoy, because this is an alternative to Stromoy, and we're gonna explain and also test it actually in this episode. And here you see Stromoy is actually war-based hero, giving you 100% unit attack and just 40% units HP. So before we start, let me give you some very important information regarding this testing. So dear beautiful people, the best and most accurate testing possible can only be done in the arena, and as you know right now, we are still limited with the amount of tries. In other words, yes, there are a ton of possibilities in which we can implement Jester and test this hero, and I will gonna try my best to do this as soon as possible, because if we have a look at the meta right now, basically till now we had this meta Layla, or you can use Duke plus Meowzilla plus Stromoy, because Meowzilla and Stromoy have an awesome synergy with those shields. And also we have to mention, I have Duke, but I prefer to use Layla in here because Layla is not an universal hero, while Duke it is one. Therefore I can use Duke somewhere else. Therefore you are seeing Layla there. And now with the entrance of Jester, we are slowly moving towards this debilitation build for the Navy. In other words, yes, we're definitely gonna have to focus this testing on Jester together with either Zen or Mr. Crimson. Today's episode is brought to you by Mr. Roman from server 2216, to whom we're gonna have to give a massive shout out for helping us doing this battle tests. And first of all, let me explain you exactly how am I testing in order to find out what's Jester's performance. So first of all, we have Mr. Roman, and I'm gonna present you first 10 attacks in which you're gonna see me using specifically this setup, which is Layla, Zen, and Stromoy, all level 5. I'm gonna show you briefly in a second, because I would like to compare this match of mine with also a match of mine in which I'm gonna use Jester with Layla and Zen, in other words, replacing Stromoy. So from this perspective, my opponent, Mr. Roman from server 2216, remains the same opponent and also using literally the same setup. On top of this, you're gonna see me in this episode mentioning a percentage, and that's because it represents the amount of units still left on Mr. Roman's march, and me trying to actually add a number to a performance of a march, because that will gonna make you understand this slightly better, instead of me actually using words saying like this setup right here is slightly better, or the other setup is slightly worse, or far better, far worse. So we have some numbers on the screen. So anyways, let's have a look at the setup, and it's important to mention I'm using the Heavy Trooper. This is my Navy setup right now. We also do not use Valhalla units, and we are not using the Encirclement units either. So let's have a look. Yeah, so I'm rolling with Layla level 5, Zen level 5, and Stromoy level 5. Later on, we're gonna see here Jester with level 5 versus Mr. Roman's Snake Eyes level 5, with Mr. Poe level 5 and Striker with level 5. Now, when it comes down to the gear, I really have to mention one single, though important fact, is that I have a rune of debilitation equipped on Mr. Zen. And these sets are saved and will be literally the same In other words, the gear which I'm using on Stromoy will gonna literally be moved to Jester. Let's have a look at the setup and the stats. So the perks are there. Let's have a look at the difference. So yes, I'm using the Shark formation level 6. Yes, I know I have told you the Scorpion formation is far better, but I'm still waiting on with my materials to do the upgrade. Still, we have the Alliance duel. So Mr. Roman has a Shark formation level 8. Those are his army stats, just as a reference. And these are my Navy stats. And we can also have a look at the DEF. And I have a 17.3 DEF on Navy and 82.1 DF of all units. It's not something super crazy because Navy is literally my weakest march. Okay, so now theoretically I could go through all these battery ports so you can see them, but we can do something far better. So you know what, I'm just gonna put 9 battery ports on the screen simply because I lack the skill how to fit 10 battery ports on the screen. Guys, I'm not perfect either. So you are seeing right now 9 battery ports, and take your time if you want to take some screenshots because there are some important pieces of information when it comes down to the hero performance or the total amount of damage done versus the regular attack damage. I know a lot of players actually are looking into these details, so you can take a screenshot. And now let me put the numbers differently on the screen because indeed we have 10 battles. So we have the best performance possible from 10 attacks. I have reached 36% of units still left on Mr. Roman's march, and the worst performance possible was when Mr. Roman still had 58% of his units still alive. And that brings us to this average of 50.6% of units left on my today's opponent. And let's now put Jester instead of Stromoy and let's see what kind of numbers are we getting out of this. So hold on to your seats, dear beautiful people, because now we are putting Jester together with Lila and together with Mr. Zen. But before we start, let me show you something super important because again, I told you the gear for me, it's very well sorted, and therefore you see this is Jester and it literally has the same gear which I'm using on Stromoy. So let's go into the arena. And by the way, let me give you a small spoiler right here because I normally should have had only 9 tries, but I actually have 11. So I'm not sure which one of you guys already know exactly what's happening here. So yes, I actually succeeded to win a couple of times. So let's briefly just look at these crazy battery ports because again, I'm gonna put 9 battery ports on the screen at once in order for you to make the difference. And this is absolutely crazy performance from this setup, which is Jester with Zen and Lila. And of course, I have won another time, which is this battery port. But let me show you something very important. So all these battery ports are extremely long battles. So have a look at this. 71 regular attacks on my side, 76 on his side. Because if we press a second replay, this is what you're gonna see here. A lot of rounds. So we are talking about 19 rounds in total. So an extremely long battle. Here you go. This is round number 90 and basically I was lucky and I won. Good. Now let's put all the battery ports on the screen and also assign to this setup, which is Jester, Lila and Zen, a certain value for their march performance based on how many units my opponent Mr. Roman still had on his march. So these are the battery ports. Take the screenshot if you choose to do that. And now let me put the numbers on the screen. And what you're gonna see is, yes, the best performance possible was actually when I won the battle and still had 34% of my march still alive, which actually translates, if we take in consideration also the slightly different march size between me and him, to actually a minus 31.8%. And the worst performance possible is actually when my opponent, Mr. Roman, still had 50% of his march still alive. And yes, beautiful people, this brings us to an average of this march performance of roughly 25% units still left on my opponent. So yeah, now let's put Lila with Stromoy, and then also on the screen, in order for you also to see this difference being definitely noticeable. And we also gonna have to add here on top, yes, I know I have said at the beginning of this video that technically speaking, the meta which we were using till now was Stromoy with Meowzilla and Lila, or if you want to use Duke. And therefore, of course, as soon as possible, probably tomorrow in the afternoon, I will gonna already bring the next video in which we're literally gonna put Lila, Zen, and Jesper, just like you see them now on the screen, but this time versus Lila with Meowzilla and Stromoy, because again, we mentioned there is a great synergy between Stromoy and Meowzilla because of those light armors, heavy armors, and so on. So anyways, beautiful people, this is the first approach on Jester. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. As always, yeah, do not forget to support what supports you back, beautiful people. That is me and that is this channel since November 2022. So yeah, check if you are subscribed, share this channel with your friends. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to see me in the next one. Ciao, guys.